Empire.
Hello and welcome to another live stream edition of the John Conn Report. Do me a favor, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, A-M-P-I-R-E. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I got a big story coming out on Cliff Kingsbury on Thursday, so give that a read. I think you'll enjoy that. And then, of course, a lot of playoff talk, Bram. That's what we got going on. And for you Gold members, we're doing a private chat on Thursday night. I was going to do it Friday. There's no way in hell I'm doing it Friday at 7:30 because Ohio State plays at that time. So sorry, folks, we're doing it Thursday, 7:30 Eastern time. Anyway, Bram, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, joining me as always. So let's get into it, Bram. It's playoff talk. You ready?
I've been ready for this for a little while. I mean, I've kind of felt like, John, from the early part of the season, I thought this was really possible. Like they had a flair for the dramatic. Jaden Daniels is ahead of the curve. And I was happy they were active at the trade deadline because it felt like that this was a season that could end up here. So I'm really excited for it. Yeah.
What do you think about this matchup?
I think the one thing I would take from week one is Todd Bowles is Todd Bowles. So I assume that we're not going to see really a lot different from, just the general idea that they're going to pressure a lot. Let's see how Jaden handles it differently this time. Let's see how the O-line, relative health of the O-line, I think is a really big deal here in protection. And I really do maybe this is just, I was talking to my friend Sarah Walsh, who I worked in SportsCenter with for years and works for NFL Network and lives in Tampa, has covered the Buccaneers for a long time. And I talked to her today and she was like, it's typical every year that people don't really pay attention to what this team does. They have the longest running streak in the NFC of making the playoffs and nobody talks about them. They're 6-1 over their last 7 post their bye. They have like one of the best point differentials post the bye, like they're like the last 7 games, like second best scoring defense post their bye. Nobody's talking about them. So they could score a lot and they're not giving up a lot. It's gonna be hard to run the ball on them. So this is a tough game. They're an NFC South champion for a reason.
It is a tough game. A lot of those games, except for the Los Angeles Chargers, were against bad teams and bad quarterbacks.
Sure.
And so I think I that's part of it. But I would say this:
hey, Washington beat the same Saints team that beat them by a point.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
But my point in that is, I don't want to create a monster here. I think they're a good team, but they have their flaws, and I think the big flaw is obviously the secondary. I think you can throw on them. But they are a very good offense because they're a balanced offense. Bucky Irving is a running back. Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Baker's on. He's going to hurt you. And so like that, it is a very tough matchup. I would have preferred to see them play the Rams, I think. But even then you got McVay and Stafford. Like that's a tough thing there too. But, we'll see, Brad.
Listen, here's the thing that like, what I do like is they turn the ball over a decent amount. They're the only team that walks into the playoffs negative in the turnover margin. That's the good thing about Washington. They're not getting the ball the way that I think that they thought. It's like the one thing that they kind of promised this coaching staff that didn't really occur. Everything else that they've kind of put out there, chemistry, play style, you're going to like the way that all that stuff. Like I bought all that. I've seen all that. They have not been able to kind of will the turnovers. Here's a week where they're going to have some opportunities. Baker threw 16 interceptions. That's tied for the most in the NFL. Baker actually ran the ball a lot more this year than he has in the past. He's had double the rushing yards that he's had in the past. He got lucky here. He fumbled the ball 9 times and only lost 1 of them. So
that's astounding.
So there's going to be opportunities here. And I really feel like this feels like a track meet. It really does. Like with as you mentioned, their secondary issues and the fact that they'll put people on an island because they bring pressure and Jaden's been so good against it. I have a feeling there's going to be some big plays. I know Washington can score. They get over 20 even when they don't play well. So I know we can score. It's going to be tough to stop them though. And their run game is really good this year. It's very unusual for them to have a dominant run game. They do. So I do feel like red zone efficiency, they've been very good at it. Our red zone defense was terrific last week, albeit against a less potent offense for sure. So I think that's a big deal. And can they get a couple of turnovers? Can they get Baker to make a couple of mistakes and take advantage of them? Because I trust this team protecting the ball. I trust this team late. I trust they'll be able to handle the pressure. They get a couple of turnovers to go their way, the thing they've been talking about all year happening, then I like the chances for them to win this weekend.
For sure. And I think, with Baker, like they did a good job of putting pressure on him. Problem was he kept getting out of the pressure and making plays. And then the other thing, Bram, and I'm going to talk about this later in the week too, but I'm watching the first game again, and the starting corners are St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes.
Yep.
I think, as long as Lattimore plays, they're in a better spot. I'm watching the offense 100%. And I'm watching Jaden Daniels on his scrambles. And if you remember, that was after that game, like Dan Quinn's big thing was he's got to keep his eyes up. Well, I would agree. Like I'd say there were 3 big play opportunities missed because he had his eyes down 5, 6, 7 yards behind the line and automatically went to, I got to get out of the pocket, I've got to run, versus keeping the play alive. And there were a couple of those. So he's way better at that. So I think, and the pressure stuff too, there's 2 things with it. One, they have to send pressure because they don't typically get pressure with their front 4. But also it leaves you susceptible, and they also leave gaps in their rush at times, and that's what he took advantage of. So there will be a chance to make big plays for them, but I think you're right. I think the one thing, this defense is not a lot shutdown defense, and few are, but they're not. So you've got to create turnovers or be very good in the red zone and to win this game.
Yeah, it's they're going to have to be good in the red zone. They have been. Washington, both sides of the ball, been good in the red zone. I'm hoping for some turnovers this week. I think they're going to get some opportunities. Baker takes chances. I agree. I think Lattimore playing is a really big deal here. I know they don't have Godwin. Godwin had a terrific game against them in week 1. He's not playing, obviously. This rookie, Jalen McMillan, has scored a touchdown in 5 straight games. He has 7 over the last 5. I remember back going into week 1, and we talked to the Tampa people, and he was the one in camp that they were telling us, watch out. Like, we think we got one here. Like, this guy's really, really good. And it's turned out to be true now that he's turned into the clear number 2 down there. This is a formidable team. I mean, they really are. They're a prolific offensive team. They have a better total offense ranking than Washington does. Like their rush offense is nearly as good, and you don't think of them that way, but they do have this. They're a really prolific team, but they'll turn the ball over, and that's what I'm hoping we'll see. And then this is, I think that's the cherry on top, is if they can finally do that, because that's the one thing that has not been happening this year. They're not getting turnovers. And that's the one thing, like when they hired Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, I went, well, I know that much, like we'll be a turnover machine, because that's what they've always done. And it would be really right on time to have it this weekend, because otherwise I think they're in a track meet with this team and have a really hard time stopping them, because everybody's had a hard time stopping them in recent weeks.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Bram, I wasn't sure how they would get all those turnovers, because you can scheme to put yourself in position to create a possible turnover, but you also have to have guys who can do that. And I don't know that they have enough of those guys just yet, but I thought they'd have more. I thought they would be able to have more of those for sure at this point. But I think it's going to be hard to win this game without creating 1 or 2.
Yes.
Just for sure, because I do think it'll be some sort of a track meet possibly. And you're right. I think the difference of this offense for Tampa is how Bucky Irving has been running, because now you have to say, what do you want to take away? And I think you have to take away explosive plays. So, that to me is where it has to start. Because if you don't take there's one other big thing that I think is a big deal to me. And we saw this last week when Mariota came in the second half. When this team stays on time and runs a tempo offense, they are the most effective, right? And what's happened over the last month, one, they haven't run the ball as well out of scripted plays, clearly. And we can talk about that. Like, they just haven't. And so that they haven't gotten into all these second and manageables that early in the season led to big rush outputs, long drives, crushing time of possession, really imposing their will. We haven't seen a lot of that. There's been a lot of early down penalties too, a lot of them. And it gets them out of what apparently is their best attribute, which is running tempo. And against that defense that wants to blitz every other play and is going to put,
they're going to test that depth chart because they are very beat up on the back end, and their pass defense shows for it because they don't help them out. And now they have a lot of injuries to try to cover up back there.
Right.
Like, I think tempo really matters here, but this is going to come down to, can they stop with the penalties on the early downs and get into a position where they can get into tempo, which is their best form of offense this entire season?
I agree with you. They got into a really good rhythm with that. And some of that, Bram, comes back to the run game. They're not doing well in the run game with the backs. Like, their numbers have been pretty good because of what Jaden and Mariota do. And listen, Jaden's legs are part of this run game, right? So you have to factor that. But when you're just handing off, and if you're not getting 3 yards on first down at least, then you're putting yourself behind the chains. And I think that to me has been a problem over the last several weeks. And it's not about Brian Robinson as much as I think just not getting the holes, a lot of it. And there have been times where the line of scrimmage is being reestablished the wrong way. And there was a run last week where I felt like, if Robinson just keeps going straight ahead, you've got 4 or 5 yards, he tries to bounce and he gets 2. So like it's a combination of things. It's not just one guy either, but that to me is a problem. And, their run game success last week or Sunday was, a lot of it was off of whether it was a level of a deceptive play, not trick play, but deception. And I think that's something but here's the other part, like, you're not going to run well against this team, but they average over 3 yards a carry from the backs. If you can get 3.5 yards a carry from your backs this week, I think you'll be okay, because it just has to be staying ahead of the chains and not relying on it as the main thing, but staying ahead of the chains. And this too, that their run game will be, they'll use the RPOs. That's a function of that, right? It doesn't mean it's going to end up in a run, but it's a part of that. And, some screens and all that you can do. So there are different things you can do. But I do think, that their run game, lack of run game success by the backs in recent weeks has been troubling. You sign up for something, forget about it after the trial period ends, then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, I can see all of my subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones I'm not using anymore. And now I'm saving more money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. Okay, somebody's asking if Biadasz will play. We don't know yet, and we'll know now. Dan Quinn said on Monday that he was looking good. He certainly seemed more optimistic about Lattimore. Not that he was pessimistic about Biadasz, but with Lattimore, it certainly seems more likely that he would play. I don't know with Biadasz. What I know, Bram, when we were out there Friday, Bram, you saw him walking across the field. It looked like there was still a little bit of a limp there, right? And so,
yeah, I mean, he's going to be playing hurt no matter what. But listen, I think it's an important question to ask. I think he is a huge key to this offense. Like, that is beyond clear. So hopefully he's able to go. And I'm with you. I don't have any information on it. I won't know anything until bare minimum starting tomorrow and see what Dan Quinn shares when they get back on the practice field.
And to his importance, I mean, there's a definite difference between him and Dieter. And part of it is for a team that's going to send the troubling stuff with Bowles. It's not just that it's like all this creative stuff. It's when he's willing to do it. And it's a little bit like Wink Martindale, where it's a little bit, Wink Martindale was like your crazy uncle who found a blitz package. Is like, hey, let's just run it now. It doesn't matter when it is, right? And I think Bowles has a little bit more of that than a lot of others do. But you want a guy in the middle who can identify stuff. And I think, and then also, like, if you're going to send motion and all that and do facing these crazy defenses, you want to have, they said that he's really good at when Washington sends motion, it causes shifts in the defense. And then that causes the center to have to re-identify things on the fly. So, I think that's where his importance is. And he's better. He's not infallible. I mean, he made mistakes against Atlanta. I mean, he's not infallible, but he is their best guy. And I think he's had a very good year.
I want to address this one too. Shane writes, I think Jaden doesn't sell the RPOs as good as Mariota. Hurts the run game a little bit, maybe a little bit. I mean, I want to say this about Mariota because he had what was an unbelievable play to get that 4th and 1. And I remember a couple of years ago when Washington was getting set to play Atlanta. He was their starting quarterback, and you watch him on film. And granted, he did this in college. It was part of the Heisman Trophy story for him. That he is amazing at that. That's his superpower play. Jalen Hurts a few years ago and Daniel Jones were the best at this. That fake keep, make that quick decision and go run. And he pulled that one out of the hat. I hadn't seen it in a couple of years, but I wasn't surprised that he pulled a couple of those off, especially one the other day when he played. He was outstanding, by the way. I'm not leaning into Jaden's the starter. Jaden's the guy. They go as far as Jaden takes them. But I just wanted to point out, Jaden's not as good at him as that. He's masterclass at that play.
Well, and that
is his best play.
That's also the zone read, not that, with that 4th and 1 was a zone read, not an RPO. But it was, to your point, it fooled Dallas so much. Did you see Malik Hooker at that? The deep safety on that? He had his fist rate.
He's unbelievable at it. He, Daniel Jones, and Jalen Hurts, when they were running this a few years ago regularly, were amazing at this. Yeah. It is his best play. He's a tremendous at those zone read runs.
Yeah. So here's the other one, too, is about Lattimore and Mike Evans. I will say, I watched on the – so, I was stuck in Dallas for a few days on the plane ride. On the plane ride home today, I was watching the first meeting of the year between Lattimore and Evans just to see, what were the shenanigans like this time. And they both behaved themselves. And there were a couple times they weren't matched up all the time. It wasn't every time. They didn't have Lattimore travel, but I do think it's something to watch. And I would hope in a playoff game that if you're Lattimore, I love the confidence, I love the competitiveness that he shows, but man, you've got to keep your wits about you. In the first game, they did. Both of them did, because I just think this team isn't good enough to give up 15 yards and lose a guy because you're being boneheaded out there. And I would hope that they would be on their best behavior. But that aside, it is a matchup I'm looking forward to watching. Yes. And I wouldn't mind if they both kind of went off like Josh Norman and Dez Bryant did. Give us some copy this week. Not necessarily what fans want necessarily, but it makes it fun. Listen, Bram, it takes it back to the 70s Redskins Cowboys matchups with Dyron Talbert. People can go Google him, what he used to say about the Cowboys. Kind of fun.
We haven't had one of these since when Josh Norman was here and
Norman and
Odell
Dez,
Beckham. When Odell Beckham was
and Odell, yes, for sure. Odell,
where they were ear-holding each other. Yeah.
We had it with
that carried over. Yeah, that carried over from Carolina when he came here. Right. So we're bringing a carryover of it. I do know Dan Quinn talked about this. I was talking to him last week about it, and he doesn't want any of these retaliatory things. They've had a lot of penalties the last few weeks. That's been part of the story of the last month that they've overcome that. He talks openly about, I don't mind ones in the heat of battle that occur. What he doesn't want are pre-snap penalties, procedural penalties, and retaliatory penalties. And he mentioned Dallas and Philadelphia specifically because they try to goad a lot of people into it. In fact, I saw a clip, the one that Daron Payne got on that extra point or that field goal, whatever, I think it was a field goal. Go look at that clip and you'll see why he reacted the way he reacted. This dude grabbed him in a place you're not supposed to grab somebody. So but again, you got to try to keep your wits about it. And this is the one, I think we should all be a touch nervous about. These guys clearly hate each other. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, they were on good behavior the first time. And the first meeting, they weren't matched up all the time. I would say maybe half the time at most. And because they moved Mike Evans around, the Saints were keeping Lattimore on one side. Sometimes they're matched up and it was a run block and that was it. I think there was one time where I saw Lattimore travel with him, and that was it. And so and there were a couple times where he went to jam him and maybe maybe jam and get off, whatever. And so it wasn't like it was a one-on-one intense matchup for the entire game. It was not that at all. And by the way, somebody brought up Wink Martindale was a Giants D coordinator, so he was a crazy one. I know there's a game show host called Wink Martindale, but we're talking about anyways, but it is like that does add a little spice to it. But I think more than that is just needing to get Lattimore back, because like I said earlier, the starting corners in that first game were Forbes and St. Juste. Samerstill and Lattimore is a definite upgrade. And even in that game, like Samerstill had a couple tough plays in that game, partly because he got tripped up in traffic. There were a couple times where there was some confusion. He's so like that, you don't see that anymore from him. Like he might get beat on something, but you're not seeing that from him. So I think they're in a better spot in that regard, for sure.
Samerstill's a stud. He's total stud. Like he's not even playing the position they want him to play. He's just gotten better and better and better. What do you have last week? 10 tackles and 3 pass breakups or something? And
the pass breakups were legit really good.
Yeah. A couple of the catches were totally contested catches on him too. He's had an outstanding year. Now I kind of go into, I don't want to talk about the offseason. We're not there yet. I'm head down. Yeah. I like what we got here. I don't want to talk about that.
No. Do you want me to talk about my Dallas trip and how long it took to get back? No, we don't need to talk about that either. It was not fun, Bram. But I did get a lot of Marriott points out of it, so there you go.
You better take a little look-see at the old weather forecast for this weekend, by the way. It's not looking pretty again. So you might be
no, I already did.
You probably should have gone from Dallas to Tampa if you were smart.
It may have been the smarter move. And so the other thing is just a little inside baseball kind of stuff. If they win the game, they go on. If they lose, of course, season's over. And the next day is a locker clean-out day. So for a reporter, you have to be back for that. And that means because it's a night game, some of us are going right to the airport after the game because you got to get my flight's at 7 a.m. A couple of us are at 5. I don't think they'd be there that early, but you don't know. And because you have to plan for that. You just don't know. And I think this is going to be a fun game, but it's one of those things where it's like it might be a little bit tired on Monday.
Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is a key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code KEIM, K-E-I-M. That's code KEIM for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 160 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Just for how Washington is going into the postseason, Bram, the 4 last-second wins.
Yeah.
What does that, for you, what does that suggest? And, I was on the radio today in Richmond. They asked me about that, about momentum. And I said, more so than momentum, to me, what's really built up is belief and confidence because of those kind of wins. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they won all 4 games on the last play of the game. I think the Atlanta game and more so the Eagles game just convinced me that they're capable of anything. Like especially the Eagles game. I am really surprised. And maybe in the same way, once I started reading off all these stats of what Tampa's been doing the last 7 weeks and nobody's talking about them, they're they're winning big games big. They're prolifically scoring. Baker had 40 plus touchdowns. One of 3 quarterbacks that had that. This guy, Bucky Irving, had an unbelievable first rookie year. If it wasn't for Jaden or Bo Nix or Brock Bowers, you'd be talking about him as like a rookie of the year. Like, he's had that kind of like impact for them. They're not talking about them. Like, similarly with Washington, that Philadelphia game, it just stands out to me. Like, to turn the ball over 5 times against anybody, and it's really 6 because there was a turnover on downs.
Right.
To not have the ball for 10 minutes of the third quarter, they punted twice too. It's almost practically mathematically impossible to pull off what they pulled off. And no one talked about it that way. Like, everyone made up some kind of weird excuse about the Eagles. Oh, well, Jalen Hurts got hurt. Or, oh, there was some false start that like they created. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding? Like, if this is 2 years from now and they're doing this regularly, they're going to start talking about this team and Jaden like they talk about Allen or Mahomes or Burrow or guys who do that regularly. That was an incredible comeback. They were down 10 to Atlanta, a couple weeks ago. Whatever adjustment they made against the run game was incredible in the second half. They dominated time of possession. They turned it around. They won. They got to overtime. Like, they had the bad play go against them at the end of the game, still never gave the ball back. They've got will like I haven't seen. They're clutch, and they've got will that I haven't seen in people wearing this uniform in my adult lifetime. So I don't put anything past them, even if everyone else seems to think, especially nationally, that they don't think much of them. Well, you're just not paying attention. Like, these aren't accidents. When they're winning every week like this, you don't get lucky and win every game like this. They're prepared for it. They execute for it. I don't think we've paid enough attention to how they've handled these critical moments, how much calm, poise, like how many times they get all that stuff right. We've seen people get fired earlier this year for mishandling these situations. Every week they're getting it right. So I really, I don't put anything past them, which is why I don't want to talk about the offseason. I very much think they can go down there and win, and we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, well, that was my point earlier. Like, Tampa Bay's playing well. They're not some unbeatable force. They are a team that's playing well. The division isn't very good. So, but again, like, I look at what these guys have done. It's like, I'm impressed by that. I'm impressed by what Tampa's done on offense. But I do think they have their holes. They're not Detroit. So, I think there is that. And I do, like, I'm with you, Bram, that the belief they have, and I was talking to John Allen about this after the game, and just being on the sideline. I talked about this in the post-game podcast, but just being on the sidelines, that is just different. And, he's not a guy, I think a lot of people they're so done talking about and comparing it to the past. Yeah. But it's hard not to notice how different, and it's not even just last year. We're talking about the last however many years. And it's funny because a lot of it, you would think, okay, some of this is on Jaden Daniels. Like, he gives them hope, but he's not the one who did it against Dallas. It was Mariota. So it goes beyond just Jaden Daniels. There is a belief and a confidence that they get it done when they need to. And I know, the situational football is a big deal. And I remember noting this in the preseason, that they, in the summer, in the camp, that they worked on that more than any team I had seen. And then in talking to guys like even Dan Quinn, he said, yes, he's done this a lot more than he did even in Atlanta. And they're so well prepared. Now, defensively, they're not quite as good in that area as the offense is, but offensively, they have the talent to make it work, and they do. And I do think it comes back to the preparation, et cetera. And so that, that leads to confidence and the trust in each other. So it's just a lot. There's a lot of, and here's the other part, Bram, too. And you talk about, like, from a national perspective, because we're around it, we feel it more. I think for them, it's like you're seeing names and stuff. It's why going into the year, a lot of people would have thought they'd have been like, they had them really bad, right? Because we are looking at names. Well, we're feeling what's going on here. And you're also, you know what I mean? And how guys are being used and what they're saying and all that. It's just a different feel when you're in it versus when you're outside of it. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know we're in a bubble with it, and, and I know I'm so close to it that I see everything, but this is unusual. Like, and we're never gonna have a season like this again. It's just so unusual that every game comes down to this, and they either won or easily could have won the others. Like that Pittsburgh game, they got a bad spot. And then, Johnny Newton jumped offside, or they get the ball back and you don't know. They don't miss an extra point on Dallas. And it was crazy that they threw that touchdown pass to Terry, but they did. They keep doing this every single week. They're in every game. I can't believe it was so crazy last week too. Not that it really matters, because Dallas' season was over, win, loss, whatever. But they go for a 4th and goal at the end of the first half, to not take a chip shot field goal. And then in the second half, when they have 4th and a marginal amount, they punt the ball late in the half. Have they not been watching what's going on here this year? Why? Hopefully this will be somewhat commonplace, where we get to the point where teams go, we can't give this team the ball back, because they will snatch your soul if you do it. And they've done it over and over and over. And that's why I'm just I don't put anything past them.
No.
They already beat. Everyone seems to think Philadelphia or Detroit's going to the Super Bowl. Well, we just beat Philadelphia. And had a terrible game and beat Philadelphia. So I don't know anymore.
Well, apparently Phillies, not to reopen that one. I just found it funny because a lot of Philly fans were a little bit upset about that game and things that were said afterwards. Well, Jalen wasn't in the game. Listen, man, all we hear is that Saquon Barkley's the MVP of the league, and you have the best offensive line in football still there, and you still had A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So, you know what I'm saying?
Pickett didn't play poorly either. That was
exactly.
I love the Eagles. My favorite part of that was the Eagles fans were well, it was Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick 3 years ago. What, he stinks now? What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, like I said, Barkley's supposed to be an MVP candidate. That means you can still roll without Jalen Hurts. So, anyways, that's a whole nother thing, and we don't need to get in that. But I do like how the mindset going into this, and I am with you. I don't think that any team really wants to see Jaden Daniels. If Tampa gets up 10, do you think they're going to feel comfortable yet? Because not only you just don't know what Jaden can do, and I think you can get back in the game like that because of him. And also with Terry, Terry had a chance for a couple big plays in that game that they just missed on. And so I think it's, like I said, there's no way they'll feel comfortable against Jaden Daniels and this offense, because we've seen it all year why they shouldn't. And, and I am, the thing I'm really curious, Bram, too, is that this is the best quarterback they will have seen in a while. And I know they haven't, the last part of the year, they haven't faced a steady stream of good quarterbacks.
That's right. Yeah.
So, but I would say the same thing almost for Tampa Bay, except for Justin Herbert. Last 6, 7, 8 weeks, they haven't faced those kind of quarterbacks either. So that's why I say,
post the bye. It's Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints. So,
Justin Herbert in there. That's who's really good.
Yep.
But otherwise, it's a bunch of kind of what Washington has kind of faced. So I think this will be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. I do hope that the weather holds off here on Saturday so we can get out. And Jeff Selby's talking about this. He pulled his eyes down that's what I was talking about earlier, is that exactly what Jeff is saying. And this is something that Robert did a lot of his rookie year, and it would continue all year. Jaden Daniels gotten better with it each week. So he's not always, you're not just keeping your eyes up doesn't always result in big plays down the field, but it does result in keeping the defense guessing what you're going to do. And sometimes that creates open running lanes as well. But when you put your head down, I was looking at one, there's one play where McLaurin, Jaden starts to scramble to his left. McLaurin stops and then goes behind the D-back. The defensive back falls down. He's wide open. Now Jaden's running to his left. It would have been a hard throw. But I think if he had that now, he'd throw it. Back then, he had his eyes down and he just ran. So I don't think they scored points on that drive. So it was a missed opportunity. But the point is, the opportunities were there. And I think he's in a much better spot than he was in that game by far. And it's funny, Bram, because, all year we've said he hasn't looked like a rookie. And I go back and watch that one. It's oh, he looked like a rookie here. And yet he still, in the end, had some productive plays. So, I just think that's where he's at. And by the way, I'm not worried about his mild leg soreness. Are you?
No.
So that's there you go.
No, I'm not.
No, not at all.
He had bad ribs. He threw a Hail Mary. I'm not worried about his mild leg soreness.
No, he will be okay. I think in that one, it was being smart they were putting pressure on and get him out, get him to this week. And and here's the other thing with that whole situation, there's a belief in Mariota as well. Like if they clearly like him and he clearly gets this offense. And as others have told me and probably told you that it's the first time he's really played in this kind of a system, which is some more akin to what he played in college than anything else he's played in. And so I think there's a definite comfort level and he's looked good. And it's funny, Bram, because when they signed him, I was kind of whelmed by it, right? It wasn't like people were like, oh my God, they got Mariota. It's like, okay. But he's turned out to be a very, very good signing.
He's been terrific for them in many ways. Walked the walk, been a good teammate. And then the other day, his numbers were outrageous. Actually, they were really, really, really good for one half of football. And, after seeing the way he kind of pumped up Jaden, the week before, it was really cool to see him kind of have a shining moment here down the stretch too. So it was cool.
So anyways, looking forward to seeing a playoff game, hoping to get out of here so we can get down to Tampa. But it's nice to, it's nice, Bram, all year, all we've talked about is football. And I think that's one of the most pleasing things for this fan base, for all of us involved, that it's been pleasing that it's just been about football. I've really enjoyed, during the week, like talking to guys about matchups, about, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about their run game? How do you have to do this versus, hey, do you think this guy's going to get fired? Do you guys, is this offensive coordinator crazy? Whatever it is, right? Like it's been just about football and it's been a nice change and we get to do it for one more week at least. So
at least
there you go.
At least
that's why I said at least, because like I said, they have a good chance to win this game. I think Tampa's a tough offensive team, but they have their holes. And I think these guys do things that can take advantage of that for sure. So and maybe you get it. Maybe you'll get to go viral one more time this year.
It's been quite a year. Yeah. I will. I'm trying to control my emotions. It's hard. I think this is like 30 years of karma, like popping up week after week after week. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm a vessel for all of you guys. Like, I think we're all screaming at it. Like and you know what? Next year, it may not feel the same way. I think the expectations are going to be different. But emotionally, that's where I'm at with this. It started with being, I couldn't believe this was real, to this is kind of a new normal, to, oh my God, like every week is a heart attack. Like, I feel like we need to put a disclaimer on the broadcast. Like, it's nuts. Like, if you have heart problems, you're at your own risk listening to this, because it's been really wild.
No, it has been, but I agree. And we talked about this before, but I don't think we'll see a season like this again. They could have better years if they have more success, but the way it has, and I do think this has been a gift to this fan base to have this much fun and have this much excitement. But I would also tell everybody, regardless of what happens, it's the first year of this. And I think that's what should be exciting for people. Like, this is far from a finished roster. And, and so like what they've done is just laying the foundation for what could be down the road. This is not who knows what happens in the future, but I would say like this has been a fun year. And again, this fan base deserves it for all the garbage that they've had, that everybody's had to put up with. But it is funny, Bram, because every Monday or Tuesday, there you are on my Instagram feed, screaming and pumping, and slapping five with London. But it's remarkable, because like, how many years would you have this where it's all these last second dramatic? The Bengals game wasn't even last second, but it's a dramatic play. I mean, it's unbelievable. So that's why I say embrace this one, and then we'll see where it goes on Sunday. So anyway, Bram, thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for joining me. I'll be back Thursday morning, Wednesday night with another episode, getting you ready for the postseason. Again, you Gold members, Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time. I'll have another one on Friday, and I'll also have my 5 things I think on Saturday. Lot to talk about this week. Thanks for joining me, and we will talk to you next time.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years, and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.